Okay, so here we are out at the Jerusalem artichoke patch. And what I wanted to do in this little clip here is show you the life cycle of a plant, because I have to dig some of these up for someone who wants to come buy them. And it gives me an opportunity to show how the plant uses its tubers and the energy in the tubers to regrow a new plant. So let's pull some of these out and we'll take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so we yanked some of these up, and have a look at, this used to be a tuber here. It's used all the energy in this tuber to regrow a new plant, and it sent a side shoot up, it sent a bunch of other roots out, and then the side shoot goes up to the sky, and now once the plant gets up there, it actually has to provide the rest of the plant needs through photosynthesis. The root tuber is actually just the way that it overwinters and survives, the freezing cold temperatures, and then regrows again. So the plant will get a bunch of photosynthesis. It'll get as big as possible. So these plants will try to get as large as possible, get as many solar panels up so that they're collecting as much photosynthesis as possible. And then at the end of the year, they take all that stored energy inside the leaves and the stem and the stalk, and they jam it right back down into the soil to swell tubers up. So when you're talking about when is the best time to pull up, a Jerusalem artichoke, now wouldn't be the time. We'll try this now and see if they survive. But now is probably the worst time, because the plant has basically spent all this energy and it's pushed up a plant and then a whole bunch of roots, and then we come and do damage to it kind of in its most fragile state. So the best time to transplant these is obviously when the tuber is as large as possible, which would be when the plant goes dormant in the wintertime. Anytime from there to when it starts pushing up new growth. A little bit of new growth, it'll still have quite a bit of tuber. Like we've got a smaller plant here. We've got a smaller plant here, and we've got a much more intact tuber here. This one actually seems fairly solid. So we've got a much more intact tuber on this one because the plant has only kind of started waking up. So that's basically the life cycle of a perennial plant, or at least biennial plant, like tomatoes, even carrots, and definitely Jerusalem artichokes. All right, so we're planting trees. Forgive any shakiness, I don't have the stabilizer or anything, I'm just trying to get this done. So basically what happened was, one of the nurseries that we buy from, they actually ended up putting out an email for a one-day flash sale that you actually have to show up in person. So one of my viewers, who is probably one of the nicest men I've ever met in my life, he was there and he said, hey, do you want any of these? So I had originally saw the sale and thought, well, I'm not going to drive all the way down there. It's a decent way away from me, just for a couple trees, because I thought I could only maybe get one or two. It didn't make any sense. So when he said he was there, and then he said he would drive them here and drop them off. Like, what a nice guy. Unbelievable. So we've got some more trees we're putting in, and I thought this would be a good time to do a little video on how to plant a tree properly, and also show you what it looks like after you sheet mulch an area, even just a month later, how the grass layer has kind of died back. So first, let's just talk about general planting. So basically, once you sheet mulch an area, it's a lot different than planting in grass. Normally, you'd have to dig out a very large hole around the tree, but when the soil is very uniform and broken up and broken down and well mulched, you don't really have to dig that much of a hole, especially for a bare root tree like this one. We basically dug a little bit wider than the actual spread of the roots. And that was so that we could point roots out in every direction, so that the tree can kind of go searching for nutrients wherever it needs to go. One thing I wanted to point out, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this in my videos before, is talking really closely and show you really closely about what I talk about when I'm talking about the root flare and the graft union. And this is about planting height. So I'll put this down at ground level depth. And this here is the graft union. So how trees are grown is a seedling is grown, and then as it grows, they cut the seedling off and they'll graft a named variety fruiter onto that seedling. The seedling will have really good, it'll be a tree that's known for really good root base, but it may not have good fruit. And then they graft a good fruiting tree that may not have a good root base onto it. So this graft union, for the first while, for the first few years of the tree's life, it's actually a source of infection and disease. And it's really good if you can point that away from the sun. So the south is basically that way. So on the north side of the tree, I angle the graft union. This just keeps it on the north side of the tree so it doesn't get that much sun, which kind of protects it from drying out and just gives it a little bit of extra help on growing strong. Now, as far as height goes, what a lot of people will do is they'll actually use this to determine the height at which they plant the tree. And that's actually incorrect. You want to look for on this trunk where it starts to flare out, and that is called the root flare. And you want that to be at ground level, not the graft union. So we plant this at the same height as the ground, right where it starts to flare out. So if you zoom out, you can kind of see the root flare coming out there, and that's where we want the tree planted in terms of height. And then the graft union, this could be 10 inches up. We don't really care how high that is, it's the root flare that we care about. This could be 5 feet in the air, it doesn't matter. What we want is the root flare to be at ground level. So many people will bury the tree, you know, where the root flare is like 8 or 10 inches into the ground because they put the graft union at ground level, and that is completely incorrect. You don't want to do that at all. Okay, and then once we have it all set up like that, we're just going to backfill. So when we dig the hole, we put it in a nice bucket so that we don't get dirt, you know, splashed into the wood chips. Because we want to really keep that mulch layer on top. We don't want weeds growing in there, so we don't want dirt in the wood chip layer if we can help it. So we put it in this pot, and then we slowly and carefully, I'm going to have to do this kind of one-handed, so sorry for any shakiness. We just kind of fill in the tree, you know, as gently as we can. It doesn't have to be, you know, crazy gentle, but we don't want to pack this in. We actually want to have it fairly loose. Like a lot of people will stomp and pack their trees in, and you know, you're just creating compaction layer when the tree really wants to be able to get oxygen down to the roots. So we're going to kind of fill this in, and we're just doing it with the native soil. So we're not adding any amendments, especially for trees. If you want to add amendments into your annual gardens for your tomatoes, that's one thing. But these trees, we want them to send roots out. We want them to be going out looking for nutrient and having to find it. We want the tree to be seeking. We want it to build a lot of seeking roots when it's getting established. And this will help it deal with times of drought later on in its lifetime. If we fill this hole full of really nice soil, then the tree isn't going to really build very many seeking roots because it's got everything it needs right where it is. And then when it runs out of that nutrient, because it's going to eventually eat all that good stuff, then it's going to basically have a stunted root system and have to go and find nutrient with a really stunted root system. So once we do this, this dirt is quite loose, so we're going to water it in. That helps draw the soil down to the roots of the tree, because we don't want a ton of air down there. We don't want big air pockets down in the root base of the tree. And then the water will pull that soil down really nice. Okay, so we're going to kind of water this in now, and we want to have it pooling. So we want to also save, you can see that I saved some of the dirt so that I could backfill this afterwards. So we want this to pool, and then we want it to soak in. We're going to start digging the hole for the next one. Now, I almost started digging this one, forgot to show you what the soil looks like after sheet mulching. So I'll just show you quickly. Here's the grass, and it's already mostly dead. Like when I pull this apart, it's really pretty much dead, and already starting to be eaten by the soil microbiology. So what I can do is kind of just tease apart some of this. You know, when you got worms moving in there, you know, eating it, tearing it apart, and consuming the roots of the grass. So What I still do is I'll save those roots, or I'll save this grass top because it's not quite fully decomposed. And I'm going to just spread that out in the lawn a little bit as free nutrient, because I've kind of damaged the mulch, or the sheet mulch layer, the cardboard, and I don't really feel like grass coming up all around all the trees. So I'll just take off this top layer and we'll use it on little bare patches of the lawn. Maybe it'll root again, and if not, it'll just turn into nutrients. But there's lots of soil life in here. I try to save it whenever I can because we're gonna need it. So pretty good though. This was, how long ago was that video where I sheet mulched this area? 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and already it's pretty much decomposed to the point where I can just kind of reach in, grab it up. I could even just flip this upside down like that, and I'm sure that would be the final nail in the coffin for this dirt or this grass. So that's some good soil now. That's a quick sheet mulch. This was only a month or so, and look at the soil that we've got now. Okay, so back at this tree here, that soil has kind of soaked down, and we can cover this up with the rest. So spread the rest of this around, and then we'll soak it one more time, and that'll help draw everything else down in. And because this will be the final soak, we'll put the wood chips back on top first. Okay, so here we are on Wildflower Hill. So this is a Wildflower Hill update, but also we added some trees to Wildflower Hill, specifically. So these are 2 jujube trees. So this is an Asian tree. They call it an Asian or Chinese date. So there it is, Ziphus jujuba. So this is a winter delight, and it's right at the overflow for the pond, so it might be able to catch some moisture. These want a hot, dry, sunny position that drains well. So I really focused on trying to get them on a hill. And these are a zone 5 plant, so it's pushing it a little bit here, but it should be fine kind of on this hill. So we've got windbreak, shelter break, we've got the thermal mass of this rock. So this is kind of a nice little warmer microclimate down here. So we put another jujube in here, and I'm hoping that this is like a 2-fold jujube. This is a nice dry, well draining position. It's got the thermal mass and all that stuff that I just said, but also I wanted to get a tree in here to kind of spread and hold this earth, just in case these rocks ever do want to slide a little bit. The trees, I've got lots of plants in there obviously, so they're all holding the soil together really well, but the tree roots will really do a number and really stabilize this hill. Not that it's not stable, it's just why not be extra safe with this. So I thought I wanted to get a couple trees in here as well, so we put one of the jujubes there. This is a tree that'll get about 20-30 feet tall and about just as wide, maybe a little thinner. But this is this rock hill. So now we're standing on Wildflower Hill looking up, and previously I'd kind of only landscaped this way to the right of this walking path, and I've started to kind of work on this side area here. So it's a fairly steep hill. It's shaded by these sumacs here, which is my coppice sumac patch. So I do cut these probably every 3-4 years. I'll come in and cut those to the ground. But I wanted to plant out some of this hill a bit as well. And what I really wanted was where you're walking down the pathway and you've got trees coming up and going over, to kind of give it a secluded feel, like you're inside a forest. So I want to close some of this in with plants, taller plants. So I want to plant some trees out through here. Part of that is going to be putting in stuff like a little swale. So this is a little makeshift swale that I dug. And the idea, of course, is as water's running down this hill, we want to stop it, slow it, spread it across the hill, and just kind of hold it. Swales are typically a little difficult on steep grades. You usually want around 20 degrees slope. This is probably around 30, 35. It's a little steep for a swale, but we'll try it out and see how it goes. And we'll plant it out and get really those plants holding the hill together. It's the roots of the plants that really do that. The reason why I figure it should work here is because we've got sumac, and sumac spread rhizomally and really tie the ground together. So even though this is fairly steep, with the sumac there, it should hold the hill in well. Now that we've got that earth cut in, the sumac can even grow in and, you know, send shoots up. Like this is a sumac here, and they'll be able to send shoots up into this swale, which then I can cut as I need to for little creatures like this pawpaw that we put in there. So that's a nice tropical tree that should hang over this pathway, kind of give it a little, you know, Lost in Eden vibe going on here. And similarly, we have one here. So let's go up and look down the hill. So now looking down the hill, we've got a cherry yarrow, lamb's quarter, comfrey, sea buckthorn, garlic guild going on here. And then just slightly moving down, we'll have a pawpaw. We'll add some more stuff in and around it, and it'll get up over and spread. And then we got another pawpaw down there that'll get up. And the sight line should be that this pawpaw and that pawpaw both close that off and almost make it feel like a forest where you have to turn. You can't go. You have to turn and meander down these rocks. That's kind of what I'm going for there. So we'll see how that works. I've got decades to tweak this and make it really something special. So now we're working on the edge of this whole entire pond area. And that's kind of what you do, is you get something going, you start planting it out, and then you work on the edges, and you continue working on those edges. Let's go take a look at that fig. It survived. Okay, so here's the fig. So remember I did that scratch test on the fig? After winter had ended and the snow had melted, it was green still. Well, it died. So it didn't make it, but this is what the Chicago hardy fig does. Is it dies above ground and then it regrows. So this fig totally survived, actually. I cut out last year's growth. We can see down there, so I cut that out, put a little nice angle on it so water won't catch on it. And then now it regrows from the roots from the bottom. And this is what the Chicago cold hardy fig does. It's you can get it to live, but zone 4 is kind of pushing it. So this is really a zone 6 tree. Zone 5, I was hoping with the thermal mass of this pond here that you know, I'd be cheating 2 zones, but I'm probably only cheating about 1 zone. So that kind of tells you about what you can cheat in terms of microclimates. This is a huge microclimate. It's everything you could want. It's thermal mass of water, thermal mass of rocks. It is shaded and windbreak from the north. So there's a hill where winds will kind of come up over the hill, blocked over by a couple trees there. On the other side, we've got giant maples. So the winds really cut over this and don't really come down here too much. And any cold air that wants to settle will actually continue down and settle down there. So this is really a perfect microclimate, and that's why we put that there, hoping to cheat 2 zones. But even with really almost a perfect microclimate, you can only cheat about 1 maybe. So that's what you're looking for in microclimates. Some people think that you build a microclimate and you can plant a pineapple or something like that in Canada. It doesn't really work that way. You're only looking at cheating maybe 1 zone, especially the further north you go, because you can do all the microclimate cheating you want. If it gets minus 30 Celsius at night, minus 40 even sometimes, which is the same, minus 40 Fahrenheit. So when it gets that cold, and we get that cold sometimes, it doesn't matter what microclimate you have. The trees are dealing with that weather. So yeah, it survived. This specific fig will grow and fruit on the same year wood. That's why it's used. Most figs will grow on 2nd year wood. So this Chicago hardy fig will grow, send up new shoots, and it'll actually fruit on this wood this year. And that's basically the life cycle of a Chicago hardy fig up in cold climates. Is it dies to the ground, you cut it to the ground, it regrows from the ground, and once it's really established and the roots are really, you know, awesome, this thing will grow 6 to 10 feet in 1 year. So it will actually grow to a tree size in a year and put on a ton of figs. So we should be able to grow figs in our area, which is always neat when someone comes over, you know, to a Canadian, fairly cold, hardy garden and you can give them figs. That's when they go, wait, what? So also at the side of this hill, we've got this, you know, just grading rock for drainage, and it's kind of ugly under there. So we put some hass caps in here between the kiwi bushes and the Egyptian walking onions, and I'm hoping that, you know, they'll get 6 to 8 feet tall. So that should kind of block and shade that out. The kiwis can use them as a trellis, kind of, once they get up, and then we'll run some kind of trellis across, like a wire between those posts, and we'll actually grow kiwi across here so that you don't see down there. Again, it's like a wall. We'll probably bury this under the ground, but it's kind of useful to fill the pond up from the roof, the rainwater. So that's always nice. So then there's the kind of first part of the food forest, and then we expanded this year, and now we're continuing to plant it out. So we're adding in tons of nitrogen fixers in here to kind of off balance the heavier fruit production that I put in. We only really have a couple sea buckthorn in there. So we've been adding more buffalo berry, sea buckthorn in here. And now we've basically got, you know, a guild of, for overstory trees, we've got peach, linden. We've added 3 new peaches here. And then we've got the apple down there. We've got butternut, or heartnut, sorry. So we've got heartnut there, some serviceberry there, and another heartnut here, which Lucy ran right into like a truck and snapped it in half. So this will probably die, but may regrow from the root. So I'm not giving up on it yet. And then we've got fig and pears, and we've added 2 persimmons here. I think, where did I put the other one? Oh, so we got a persimmon here. And then we've got pear down there, and we put the other persimmon here. So just keep planting, and I forget where everything's going. So persimmons kind of need 2 persimmons to pollinate. Some persimmons, like the Nikita's Gift, are self-fertile. These ones aren't. So these are American persimmons, and these ones need a couple for pollination, so that's why they're planted fairly close to each other. I might have to add another one in here somewhere. I don't think so. Those get pretty big. So we'll let those grow. We'll see if we get persimmons off of those. But this whole entire guild here is really fleshing out. And then we've put in lots of sea buckthorn everywhere, some cherries, like bush cherries. We've got raspberries in there. We've got some strawberries and comfrey planted in there. Tons and tons of sea buckthorn. It's a great nitrogen fixer, and we just absolutely love the berries, and they're mega healthy. So this is really coming along well. And then my plan for this now is to have this path come out this way, where you can walk down the strawberry patch, and then you're walking now between 2 peach trees, one right here and one right here. So then you're walking between 2 peach trees, and then you hit this apple, and I was thinking of turning this into like a diamond, almost like an island style guild that I designed into one of my consultation jobs, and I really like the idea of that. So we're going to do like an island guild here, where the path goes this way and then the path goes this way underneath all these fruit trees, under like a canopy of mature fruit trees. So this is obviously, it's going to look like this for 3-4 years, but I'm hoping, you know, 10-20 years down the road, we've got like a tree tunnel of fruit trees where it's like a choose your own adventure. Do you want to go into the strawberry patch and the apples and the autumn olive and strawberries and raspberries? I already said strawberries, but there's so many, they deserve 2. Or do you want to come this way to the peaches, the sea buckthorn? Do you want to check out the nut trees and get some lovage, service berries, and then connect into this under the maple tree walking path that meanders back and forth? So next we'll be planting this side of it out. We've lined it with comfrey on this side. We'll probably line it with comfrey on this side just to act as a rhizome barrier, an underground root barrier to stop the grasses creeping in. So we'll probably do that as well. We've got some maples and oaks planted, and we've got grapes next to me here. So we'll flesh those out. Those are really, like, I just love this maple that I'm standing under. So this is me looking forward 10, 20 years down the road and thinking, hey, I always want to have a nice big maple here. So we put 2 maples in, see which one grows the best. They'll grow together for a while, actually 3 maples. And they'll grow together for a while, and then once they're, you know, competing with each other, we'll probably take one down, ideally maybe the middle one. That'll be around when the one that I'm standing under is pretty much ready to go. You know, I might be 80 or 90 years old, but it's never too late to look forward and plan in the future. And then we're just continuing to flesh all this out. So much planting, tons of planting. We added lilac in here. And I just love this walking area. I love how the maple's drooping down, really blocking light out in here. And look how densely everything's starting to fill in. You know, you can really start to see some of this come together. This is the drip edge tree from the inside, drip edge guild. We've got, you know, so much moisture collection happening that we've got mushrooms coming up everywhere, pawpaws, haskaps. It's food everywhere, and it's wonderful. So I'm just adding, constantly planting. Here's some cherries that are doing really well in this front, you know, passerby guild. We've got edible daylilies in there. We've got birch. So it's all starting to come together. Poplar for some vertical height. Got little baby oaks we planted in there. Again, we're always planning for the future. So it's not just planting fruit trees, it's also planting, you know, those legacy trees, those 200-foot oak trees that are going to be your legacy that well outlives you. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something about planting trees. Maybe that graft union part, you know, pointing that north, maybe that's a little tip that you can take home and use that when you're planting your trees out. And we got a little mouse in there. What is that? It's a little baby bird. Beautiful. Look at the mushrooms coming up everywhere. I'm eating them constantly and I can't keep up with them. There's just so much food everywhere. I kind of maybe planted too much. What do you think? Is that possible? I don't know. Thanks for spending time with me in the food forest.